So 2 weeks ago, I made a video on a real story of a couple who is retiring at 65 with $500,000 in their RRSP account and a paid off house. I talked about how it's close to impossible for this couple to retire on $500,000 given the purchasing power parity now. This $500,000 will most likely be exhausted and the government support will not be enough to support their old age. Now, I did receive a lot of comments and messages from a lot of you who were concerned about this couple, and there were so many different solutions that I saw. Some agreed with me that selling their primary home is a great option. Some said that they should not move on rent and instead downsize. Some of you suggested that they can work longer to support their retirement, and some of those comments were very delusional, saying that they can actually live off government support, which is less than $2,000 a month. In today's times, even if you have a paid off house, it's next to impossible. Now, there were a few people who actually made a very logical argument for them to leave Canada and go back to their home country, which is India. That to me makes sense, at least mathematically. If you have $500,000 of RRSP and a paid off house, which is worth $1.2 million after you sell, that's almost $1.5 million of tax free. After paying all the taxes, you can actually take home about $1.5 million back to India. Now, obviously, I'm oversimplifying this situation and the taxation attached to it. Always talk to a CPA before you make that move. But let's say in this example, they have $1.5 million. This in India would be worth right now about 9 crore, just over that. Now, if you run a meltdown strategy, let's assume that you invest that 9 crore in an FD, like a fixed deposit, 6 to 7% in India, even if it's 5 to 7%, for the next 25 years, and you live off that, that's over 3 lakh rupees per month, which is more than enough. Even if you don't own a home there, you're renting in a really nice place, it's more than enough to live off their retirement. So the money that they have might not be enough to live a comfortable life or even a bare minimum life in Canada, but that's more than enough. They'll be living a very rich, very wealthy retirement if they move to India. But here's the problem. They came to Canada in their early 30s, which is almost like me and a lot of you who are watching. We all came in mid-20s to late 20s to early 30s to Canada. It's really easy for you and I in our 30s or even in our 40s to think of moving back to India. We have our parents there, our siblings, our friends who just got married or have little kids. The idea that you can be reunited with family and the kids can grow up with their cousins is legit amazing. But like for this couple, when more time passes in Canada, it becomes increasingly difficult. Now, at 65, let's for example take the example of the couple that I talked about in my previous video. They have lived in Canada for 33 years. Their parents aren't in India because they are not alive. All 3 of their kids were born in Canada. They have not been to India as a family in the last 10 years. Their siblings have also moved to different places, and the ones who are still there, they prefer coming to Canada to visit them because that's like a holiday to them. 2 of their daughters are married with kids, so this couple are grandparents now. The third one, which is their youngest, their son, is going to University of Waterloo in a couple of months. So the only family that they have left with, their kids and grandparents, are all very Canadian who are intermingled into this life, and they would never move to them. Even one of them will never move with them to India. This couple also doesn't want to stay away from their kids. I get it. Before we became parents, we actually discussed about living outside of Canada after retirement. We actually even wanted to move to the mountains somewhere in McLeodganj. We love that place, and we thought that we'll retire here. Or Dehradun, we actually I used to spend my summer holidays as a kid in Dehradun, and I loved it. But after Aryan is born, everything has changed. We realized that Aryan will have a full life in Canada. We made the decision to immigrate to Canada and have him in Canada. It will be unfair for him to move in his teens or even in his 20s to India with us. We won't want to stay away from him either. At least right now, I can say with 99% certainty that I'm not going to retire in India, and in fact, Canada would be our forever home. And sitting today in my late 30s, this changes how I look at my financial goals. Now I know that I'll need a paid off house so that my expenses are not very high. I don't have to pay any rent when my income, my active income, will be close to zero. That's how I know that I do not want to rent forever, and I would rather buy a home and pay it off as soon as possible. The decision of retiring in Canada, the second thing that it clarifies is that I need a much higher, much more sizable investment portfolio that I can live off from passive income coming from that portfolio. It has to be sizable enough so that the income that I get, the yearly income that I can draw from it, is enough for me to live in an expensive Canada, which is where I talk so much about the $5 million retirement with a paid off home. And of course, that 1% chance that I actually move out of Canada into a developing country like India, I will be able to live like a king and be able to pass on all the assets that I have. It will be almost generational wealth for Aryan. By having a paid off house and enough investments to live in Canada, I at least have the choice to stay in Canada. Because if my expenses on retirement are above what I can draw from my investments, I will not have that choice and will have to move outside of Canada. I don't know about you, but I'm not okay with being robbed of that choice. The intent of making this video was not to confuse you. I talked to so many people who are thinking of going to India to retire. However, having talked to so many people, I have talked to even people who have been in Canada for over 50 years, like many people who have been in Canada for over 20 years. None of them want to go back to India, not because they don't, feel that they'll be better off in India. It's just because they have a lot more to lose leaving Canada because they have built a circle, their kids are here, their families are here, and there's less to go back to India. So there's a massive trade-off that you're making, and the trade-off is big enough for you to always, lean towards staying in Canada. That's what I've learned from, people who have been here for over 2-3 decades. Now, if this video even helped one person make a different decision, I would encourage you to watch this next video where I talk about my $5 million plan. I hope this video was helpful. That's all I have for today. मिलते हैं अगली वीडियो में, तब तक के लिए बाय बाय.